When we think about tragedy involving the Boston Celtics, we always think about Len Bias. But what if I were to tell you less than 10 years later, another tragedy in Boston unfolded? So what's up guys, Mike here, and today we're going to talk about the story of Reggie Lewis, a man who was an all-star and Boston's team captain before he tragically died of a heart attack in his prime. So not much more to say on my end, let's just jump into this story. From 1981 to 1987, the Boston Celtics were a legitimate NBA dynasty. In those 7 years, Boston made the NBA Finals 5 times and won 3 NBA championships. Led by Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish, the Celtics teams of the mid to late 80s were simply dominant, and headed into the 90s, things were supposed to continue that way. Because due to an absolute steal of a move, Boston had traded Gerald Henderson to Seattle in 1984 and got back the Sonics' first-round pick in the 1986 draft. The Sonics would go on to have a horrible season in 1986, and thus, the Boston Celtics were given the number 2 pick and took a man who many thought was going to be a superstar. For Boston fans, this seemed like a scenario that was almost too good to be true. In 1986, the Celtics had gone 67-15 in the regular season and had won the championship. Now, they were supposed to add a young star to their roster, but of course, as you probably know, the player the Celtics took was Len Bias, a man who on the night he was drafted died of a cocaine overdose. It has been said that this horrible event set the Celtics back for decades, and it's pretty obvious to see why. If Len Bias did become a superstar or even an all-star, the Celtics' entire future would have been completely different. For one thing, they would have had a young superstar to build their franchise around to make a run at championships in the 1990s. And another common belief is that if Len had played alongside Larry Bird in Bird's final years, Bias would have been able to take a lot of pressure off of Bird, which would have meant that Larry could have played less minutes and wouldn't always have to be the focal point of the offense. This may have meant that Bird, a man who retired early due to back injuries, could have played a few extra healthy seasons if he had a young star to help carry the load. Again though, most people seem to know about the Len Bias story, or at least have some idea about it. Most people know that the death of Len Bias had serious consequences for the Celtics in the 1990s. However, what most people seem to forget is that the final straw in the collapse of the Boston Celtics empire came with the death of team captain Reggie Lewis. The story of Reggie Lewis is the classic tale of a man who would simply not be outworked. A basketball player who gave it his all on the court every single night. Reggie's journey to the NBA was filled with obstacles, starting when he was cut from his high school team and was forced to transfer to Dunbar High School. And at Dunbar, while he did make the team, he was still not a starter and was instead asked to be the team's 6th man, which to Reggie, again, was no problem. Given a chance to play at Dunbar, Reggie did not let his coach down, soon becoming the best 6th man in the country while helping to lead Dunbar to an absurd 50-0 record. But because he played off the bench, college scouts did not exactly barge down Reggie Lewis's door to offer him a scholarship. However, he did play for one of the best high school basketball teams ever, so Northeastern and their coach Jim Calhoun did take notice. Their recruitment of Reggie was relentless, and eventually he gave in and signed with Northeastern. This meant that Reggie would spend his college career playing in the shadows for a small college basketball program, but again, this did not matter to him. He worked as hard as he possibly could every single day to reach his goals, to reach the next level, to become a basketball player in the NBA. And by the time his college career was over, Reggie had broken the Northeastern scoring record and had played well enough to attract the attention of the Boston Celtics, who took him with the 22nd pick in the 1987 draft, just 1 year after the tragic death of Len Bias. Now, joining a veteran squad filled with future Hall of Famers was never going to be easy for an NBA rookie. So sure, Reggie Lewis did have some struggles early in his career, but he would just do what he always did: put his head down, and went to work. As a rookie for the Celtics, Reggie averaged just 8.3 minutes and 4.5 points per game. Then, just 1 year later, he started 57 games and averaged 18.5 points a night. Already, Lewis was establishing himself as a future star in Boston, and those around the team were not surprised by this giant leap in production at all. As Larry Bird remembers, when Reggie first came into the league, he really didn't know how to play the game. He shot the ball, that was about it. But he was a worker. And because of this dedication to hard work and his relentless style of play, Reggie soon became an absolute Boston fan favorite. What's more, he became an NBA All-Star and eventually the Celtics team captain. He was the ultimate example of consistency. A player who between the ages of 23 to 27 averaged 19.2 points, 4.7 rebounds, 1.4 steals, 1 block, and most importantly, helped the Celtics to win games. Now, because of the death of Len Bias, the Celtics teams of the early 90s were simply not talented enough to become real championship contenders. Still though, to show you the impact Reggie had in Boston, let's go back to 1988, where in his rookie year, the Celtics went 57-25 and lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. From there, throughout the course of Reggie's 6-year NBA career, the Celtics made the playoffs every single season. After Reggie passed away, a story we'll get to in a second, Boston did not have another winning season until 2002, which was 8 years later. That's how much Reggie Lewis meant to the Celtics. That's how much he meant to the city of Boston. The man could simply not be replaced. And with that said, let's move on to the second tragedy that the Boston Celtics faced in less than a decade. As during the first game of the first round of the 1993 playoffs, Reggie Lewis began to, as his wife would later put it, move in slow motion. From there, he would collapse on the court, and when he tried to get up, he seemed disoriented. Still, he convinced his coach to let him return to the game because that's who Reggie Lewis was as a person. No matter how he personally felt, he didn't want to let his team down, and he didn't want to stop playing the sport that he loved. And so Reggie did return to the game for about 6 minutes before finally the team forced him to check out. These would be the last minutes Reggie Lewis would ever spend on an NBA basketball court. Leaving the arena that night, Reggie would be checked into a hospital and began to be tested by what the Celtics called a dream team of doctors. These doctors would tell Reggie that his heart condition was serious enough that he could never play basketball again. Still though, basketball was Reggie's life. It was all he really knew. What's more, he was supposed to be in the prime of his career. He should have been able to play in at least 8 more seasons. Because of this, the competitor in Reggie Lewis just could not accept the diagnosis he was given. So he and his wife decided to get a second opinion, and it's because of this second opinion that I felt so afraid of a possible Chris Bosh return to the court. The reason I felt this way is that this second opinion led to the death of Reggie Lewis. As after he was told he should never play basketball again, Reggie checked into Brigham and Women's Hospital. It was in this hospital that after weeks of tests, the chief of clinical cardiology told the Lewis family that the previous doctors had been wrong. Instead, these new doctors felt that Reggie suffered from a fainting condition and would actually be able to play in the 1994 NBA season. Remember, this was a prestigious doctor from a worldwide prestigious hospital telling Reggie exactly what he wanted to hear. And so Reggie listened. He began to shoot baskets and lightly began to get back into basketball shape. At this time, it has been reported that the Brigham doctors decided to get a third opinion and also came to the conclusion that Reggie had a bad heart. But at this point, it was too late. Reggie had been told that everything was going to be fine, and more importantly, he wanted to believe that everything was going to be fine. On July 27th, 1993, when shooting baskets, Reggie Lewis collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. Just 2 hours later, he was pronounced dead. The official cause has been listed as cardiac arrest, and the city of Boston and everyone around Reggie Lewis were in shock. Again, this man embodied everything that that Boston was. He was their team captain for a reason. This was an absolute basketball tragedy, and I just wanted to share this story for any of you that have never heard it. That way, the memory of Reggie Lewis can live on. So, thank you guys for watching, and before we go, I do just want to say one thing. Yes, there is a conspiracy going around that Reggie Lewis used cocaine and that caused his heart problems. That is not a substantiated rumor. That's why I did not talk about it in this video. I could not find any proof of that, and I did not want to soil the legacy of this man with just rumors. Anyway, that's all we have for today, guys. If you're new to this channel and you love basketball, make sure to subscribe for videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday around 6 p.m. Eastern. And the trade deadline's coming up, so we might have a video tomorrow. So what I'm saying is just subscribe so you do not ever miss a video. And if you're already subscribed, thank you guys so much for supporting. You're awesome. We all know it. And as always, have an awesome day, and cue that music.